Mr. Zhong Kwok Pen. Thank you, President. This morning, Ms. Claudia Mo referred to the attendance rate of the Bills Committee and said that she had an attendance rate of 88%, and there was only Mr. Chen Chi-chun from the Pan Democrats, which worked harder than he. And then there's Mr. Kwok Wing, Dennis Kwok, and Mr. Yu Si Wing, 100% attendance rate. So Ms. Claudia Mo quoted wrong information and misled and trying to mislead us in a very selective manner. This is highly irresponsible. And I think she, as a legislator, has acted in a very incredible manner. Well, nowadays, as a lawmaker, even if you don't attend meetings, doesn't mean that you know nothing about the bills. We can use the internet, we can read the papers, we can invite government officials to elaborate to us, and we can invite members from the industry to share with us. That doesn't mean that we are ignorant of what's in the bill. So I'd like to continue my debate with Ms. Claudia Mo. Liberal Party at first wanted to support the motion to adjourn the debate and set aside the issues for a while. But I don't want to do that. I like to continue with this debate. I like to compare how knowledgeable the bill is for someone who has attended 20% of the meetings, another one who has attended 88% of the meetings. So the LP might change its position, all because of what Ms. Claudia Mo said this morning. And Ms. Claudia Mo said that the business sector had to pay heed because development of the Internet is most beneficial to the business sector. Of course, I know this full well. I think I am better businessman than she might be. I don't want to give up this opportunity to continue this debate with her. And perhaps we should invite members who have, according to Ms. Mo, attended less than 50% of the Bills Committee meetings and to debate with someone who had an over 80% attendance to see whether someone who attended meetings more was for sure no more than those who were not always present. Yes, we wanted to set aside the issue first to continue our dialogue and communications with the industry and the netizens, and more explanation from the administration, hoping that we can buy time to allow the community to understand the bill better. Because in the community, there are different issues. As you can see, today's progress. In 1 hour, we can only have 2 members speaking. I think even for the week beginning on the 6th of January, we might not be able to complete this debate or put this bill to the vote. We might well use up the whole of January. So by then, it will be 6 or 7 weeks spent on this bill. The administration, the industry, and the netizens can continue to communicate. How's that different from adjourning the debate now and continue or to communicate, do that dialogue? Mr. So told us that he would have no time to reintroduce the bill later. Well, although I only had 21% attendance, I am not really ignorant of the provisions. I think this bill is not really too bad. If we have another 6 or 7 weeks to continue our dialogue with different sectors, and together with Ms. Claudia Mo's mentality, Dr. N. Cheng, I'd like to call Ms. Claudia Mo and 24 Pan-Democratic members back to hear this reply by Mr. Chong Kwok Pen. There is no need, Dr. Zhang. Dr. Zhang, I am going to wrap up in 3 minutes. I'm afraid, so long as it's been pointed out by a member that we don't have a quorum in the chamber, I'll have to call for a quorum. Mr. Leung Kwok-hung, please do not yell or shout in the chamber. Mr. Chung Kwok Pen. Thank you, President. We don't even have one Pen Democrat here. I say that the Liberal Party will not support this motion to adjourn the debate because of Ms. Claudia Mills' remarks, so that we can continue this debate with her. Thank you.
Mr. Chen Tam-lam. Mr. President, the Copyright Amendment Bill 2014 has its resumption debate started, and Ms. Sit-Ho has moved a motion on adjournment. She has not given ample reasons for that. I think it's unnecessary. They think that if they can drag the matter on for some while, then there will be a consensus, and then people will agree with their 3 amendments. They think that stalling the bill will give greater exemptions to infringing acts. I think that's wishful thinking. Their goals cannot be achieved. When will it be the end of the stalling? 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, 10 years? Mr. Lin Leung asked for the adjournment so that there will be a perfect copyright bill. But is there a perfect bill in this world? Is there a bill that doesn't need any amendment? The motion on adjournment will only lead to endless waiting, and there will be no resumption. The disputes on copyrights have been there in Hong Kong for more than a decade. Our copyright law is outdated. Anyone who are familiar with this do not want to see this situation to continue. The existing copyright law has more restrictions on the users, and they have a higher chance of breaching the law. Is it what Ms. Sit-Ho and the Pan Democrats want to see? Some say that secondary creation and also parody are not subject to prosecution. That's really dangerous. This will only put more netizens in the position of infringing copyright laws. Hong Kong is an important world city, and the law should not, the bill should not be stalled. How many decades does one's life have? The world is moving forward rapidly in the past 10 years in terms of the development of communications technology, electronic technology. They are developing with leaps and bounds. 10 years ago, mobile phones can only used to make telephone calls, but now it has become an integrated communication equipment. You can use it as a phone. You can watch movies. You can watch TV. You can search for information. You can pay tax, pay your bills. It can be a camera, and you can also forward photos. It's also a computer. You can. There are numerous uses. You name it, and there are changes all the time. The apps are also important intellectual property. Now, some apps can be downloaded free of charge, and some have to be bought. This is the reward for the copyright owner. Copyright pervades every sector and every quarter. And if we do not keep pace with the times and change our copyright law, we'll become outdated. Now, there is a need to, without giving, there is a need to find a balance between copyright owner and users, and this is the bill. This is the purpose of the bill. Now, the bill, the existing law, in fact, the existing law is tilted towards protecting copyright owners. Do you want this to continue? Well, you think you have helped the netizens by stalling a piece of draconian law, but in fact you are putting them in danger. If everybody thinks that when they can make use of any new creation, then nobody is willing to do any creative work. and there would be no creative activities. Now, the Pan-Democrats put up specious arguments to negate the copyright bill. That's unreasonable. Ms. Claudia Mo has all along been unreasonable. Now, she used the attendance rate of the members of the subcommittee of the Bills Committee to assess the understanding by other parties in respect of the copyright bill. If you attend less meetings, then you have less understanding of the bill. Mr. Phyllis Chung has already refuted the argument. Thus, Mr. Ronnie Tong has a less understanding towards the bill in respect of vis-a-vis Ms. Mo. Mr. Chairman, it's not the time for you to speak. I asked for a quorum. No need to yell at me. The party member, Mr. Leung Kok-hong. Mr. Leung Kok-hong, if you do not stop, I will order you to leave. It's not the time for you to speak. This is a final warning. Mr. Chen Kam Lam. Mr. President, I continue my speech, which has been interrupted incessantly. Ms. Mo's speech has all along been unreasonable. She used the attendance rate of the members of this Bills Committee to assess the understanding by other political parties in respect of the bill. The less the attendance, the less the understanding towards the bill. Just now, Mr. Felix Chung has already refuted her speech. I want to ask her whether Mr. Ronnie Tong has a less understanding than that of Ms. Mo. Ms. Mo claims that her attendance rate is 88%, but she was late and she left early. Now, when I studied the bill, in order to consider the lack of basis, the lack of understanding of basic concepts of the copyright bill, allow them time and again asking simple and simple questions. The secretary can remember this. Say if I have a classic song that is forwarded to other members, will that be other friends? Will that be infringement? Now, generally speaking, members were late to attend the meeting. Now, the Bills Committee is a whole, and there shouldn't be any criticism among members against one another. Ms. Sid Ho has made a rather reasonable point, and each party has a member responsible for studying a particular bill, so you cannot require every member to be familiar with each and every bill. Even within the Civic Party, not everyone is familiar with the bill. Mr. Alan Leung made use of Qing Dynasty law. That was in 1910. That was made by reference to copyright law overseas. I thought that he would like to invoke the Qing Dynasty law and applied it in Hong Kong. Now, if one understands oneself, then one will not use one-sided facts to attack other people. That, in fact, has shown one's ugly side. The rules of procedure of this council have been mutilated by the Pan-Democrats. Ms. Emily Lau said that there was lack of morals. Abuse of the rules of procedures is common. They try to filibuster to block the bills. That's not new normality. The council has been the evil force of dragging the feet of social development. Many citizens, more and more citizens, regard the council as just rubbish. Let me quote a commentary from the Ming Pao. The copyright bill has been lined up for second reading. The Pan-Democrats filibuster by asking for quorum. However hard they try to block the bill has to be dealt with by the Legislative Council. Different people have different views towards the bill. Some groups and netizens said that they will gather and protest outside the Legislative Council. The development has moved towards populism. Will there be storming of the Legislative Council? It's hard to forecast. I hope it's hoped that the councillors will listen to the views of professionals. The reason should not be overwhelmed by populism. With these remarks, I oppose the motion. Dr. Fernando Chung.
President, seems there's a problem with the sound input. I don't have I think the microphone is not on yet. Microphone is not on. The microphone is not on yet. No, not yet. Try using the mic in the next seat.
主席
，President. So it shows that there could be technical hiccups and glitches. Is there any problem with the sound output? Well, I don't think many would know what I'm talking about. There's someone who's famous on the internet. His name is Pt4. Every day he starts streaming of a video game playing. The first sentence he will always say is that, can you see and hear me? Is there any problem with the image and the sound? And then letters will start talking to him, and then as he plays the game, then it's being streamed instantaneously. Now, why do I have to mention this? I don't suppose any of us here would watch streaming of video games playing, but a lot of young people consider this their entertainment. I must declare that some of my assistants are quite obsessed with this as well. And I've actually learned from them. So young people these days use the internet in such a way we are totally out of touch. It's actually part of their daily routine. Every night they will turn on the computer and they watch other people play video games. And someone plays video games to the extent that he's become a celebrity on the internet. This person, Pt4, that I mentioned, Brother Tat, every night there would be thousands, over 10,000 people who would all be watching him play games. And as he plays games, he would speak to the netizens, he would give a narrative. Yes? Why is your speech related to the German debate, please? Well, why is my speech related to the debate on the German motion? Now, if this bill is passed into law, then this kind of lifestyle, this kind of streaming of video game playing may be against the law. So this whole way of life could be disrupted. Now, if you don't know what this is about, I would suggest you go and ask young people. Please be quiet, other members. Now, I have to explain this kind of activities on the internet because I want to ask the question, have we thought the bill through? If we have not, and then many people will be affected. Now, this streaming of video game playing, people don't have to pay to watch others play game. This is a form of entertainment for the young people. It's for the XYZ generation. So have we considered what the impact is if this bill is passed? If the bill is passed, they may have to stop this way of life. But is it really necessary? Is there any problem with them watching others play video games? Or if people use streaming technology to broadcast live when they play video games, and along the way they communicate with other audience. If the audience, is that a problem? Is it really an infringement of the interests of copyright owners? I think we have to look at this carefully. Now today we use the computer, we use the internet as a platform for exchanges, and we have various forms of creative work as a result. Our law actually couldn't keep up with such developments. If we apply this bill with the limited exceptions and we allow this bill to be passed, then the way of life of the young people, a lot of the creative activities, and that are disseminated through the internet may all be affected directly. And that's the reason why I have to support this motion of adjourning the debate, and that's one of the reasons, because we haven't thought it through. Let me give you another example, President. Everyone in Hong Kong is debating it. As our Chief Executive, C.Y. Leung, on his own Facebook account, he uploaded this event. He attended a function of the BPA and he sang the song Keen on You, and then he uploaded the video. But then afterwards he had to rush to apply for licenses. But this is really common these days. People may take videos of their own day-to-day activities and they upload these video clips to their own homepage, webpage or Facebook. They would think it's something, really common. But they don't know they could have been caught by the law. If this bill is passed into law, what would happen? The Director of Intellectual Property came out to say, well, there should be some reasons to serve as defense after this bill is passed. He could say that he's commenting on current events or news and cite that as exception. Well, I don't know if people could regard their day-to-day activities as a form of news reporting. I haven't heard it before. If this could be regarded as a form of news report simply because he's a public figure, so therefore he can cite this exception. But what about just any housewives in a community? They can't be covered by the exception. In that case, have you really thought through this bill? There are officials in charge of the enforcement of this law. The Director of Intellectual Property, she knows something's got. This is not right. So she just cited any exception, but is it really the right exception? Do you believe that when this bill is passed into law, the Chief Executive could apply for exception on the ground of news reporting, and so he won't be breaching this bill? I don't think anyone dares to say for sure, because very often we have to go to the court first before we find out. And there are no such precedents in Hong Kong. So there is a piece of legislation which is drafted this way. It's not thorough, and even our Chief Executive was almost caught. So what kind of a bill is this? If we pass this bill, how can we tell the public, don't worry, before you make a video, just think it through carefully. Just don't sing. And if you sing, please, before you do so, apply for 3 or 5 licenses so you could upload the clip onto the internet. I don't think people would do that. If it comes to that, then really we shouldn't pass this bill. Shall we not pause now and think it through? So let's take a pause and think about it further. And I didn't make this up myself. In 2001, April, well, the bill was passed, actually. Apart from publications, books, and then computers, software, TV, music, and so on, the coverage was expanded. The government thought there was not a problem, so they wanted it to be passed, even though at that time many members expressed concern. And there was a worry that if the bill was passed in its form then, some of the acts might become criminalized. And then the government thought, oh, that's not a problem. And in April 2001, the bill was passed. But then a month later, in May 2001, the 2nd, the acting Secretary for Commerce and Industry, Ms. Yvonne Choi, came to this council to move to the second reading of a bill to suspend the Amendment Bill 2001. Ms. Sit Ho already gave you an account of that story. So that means that they passed a bill in April. A month later, they had to come and introduce another bill to suspend the previous passed bill because they found something wrong with it. So that way, then the bill won't be applied to publications, books, and so on. Why? At that time, Yvonne Choi said this. On the 1st of April, the new law commenced, and it sparked much controversy and concern in the community. And she said, compared to other media, like books, publications, journals, internet broadcast, and the copyright regime, and so on, they have not been properly developed. Businesses and educational institutions are afraid of being prosecuted criminally. And then there is not easy channel to apply for authorization. Now, it's like in the C's case, he applied for one license, but then some musicians came out to say that there are 4 or 5 other licenses he hasn't yet applied for. So Ms. Choi continued to say that that's why it stood in the way of communication, and it's caused inconvenience to education institutions. That's why at earlier meeting of the panel of the Commerce and Industry, the Secretary for Commerce and Industry made an apology to the public on behalf of the government, and they accepted responsibility to find a solution to the problem. He personally offered an apology to the public. Now, I don't want history to repeat itself. A bill that's not been thought through is tabled, and once it's passed, it's implemented, but it's full of problems. It sparked much concern. Before this bill is passed into law, already it sparked much concern. It's raised much concern among the public. And then the Secretary already said, as soon as we commence the law, we'll review it. So before you even review it, you say you're ready to review it. Since you have to review it, might as well do the review first. This is not a well thought through bill. The mechanism is not done properly. Then that's going to be a problem. That's why last time round you had to, the government had to offer an apology, and you had to submit another bill to suspend the earlier bill. Now, we don't want that again. We need to adjourn this debate. We need to think this bill through. It's a rational move. I'm not saying that we shouldn't enact this piece of legislation. I've actually made reference to the comments of many different academics. There was one, Professor John Yu. He is a professor of a law school in the United States. He's also the director of Intellectual Property Center. He's an expert on intellectual property, and he thought our copyright law is 10 years behind, and there's the need for amendment. But then he also expressed concern that the current amendments might lead to problems because the exceptions are too narrowly defined. It's true, in Hong Kong we don't have any precedents, and it's not easy to prove something is criminal. But if we pass this bill without thinking it through, even though in future the threshold for criminal offense is high, but imagine a bill has not been thought through. A piece of law has not been thought through, and people might be caught easily and inadvertently, like that's the case with the chief executive. And it's like the case I mentioned about streaming of video game playing. Now, this is a way of life for the people of Hong Kong. It will be immediately affected. And many netizens are concerned that if this bill is passed into law, would the government use it as a tool to restrict freedom of speech? Those are real concerns and real fear. If we just rush to pass this bill, we cannot be answerable to the public, and we will be helping to crack down on freedom of speech. Does any other member wish to speak?
If not, Mr. Wu Chi-wai. Thank you, President. This debate is on whether we should adjourn this debate on the resumption of the Copyright Amendment Bill 2014. If we look at history, we know very well that whether we like it or not, we understand that the provisions here is a progress compared with the 2011 bill, but is improvement enough? Is it progressive enough? This is the crux of the matter. Many colleagues may say that, well, the flaw is always like this. After the law is enacted, we can review it to perfect it, and we may amend it in the future to improve on it. So how should we tackle this problem? Netizens have a lot of concerns about the amendment bill. While there are a lot of exceptions here, they are not enough to cover all kinds of new media and the new presentation of content. And they are worried that once the bill is enacted, many current activities on the internet may be suppressed in the future, and they're not too sure what will happen. We know very sure that unless you fall into one of the exceptions, otherwise your activity might be subject to challenge by copyright owners. 4 years ago, when the Copyright 2011 Amendment Bill was gazetted, it was criticized. Compared with copyright regime of advanced economies, it was backward in many ways. Back then, the bill gave priority to the economic interests of copyright owners, and there was no regard for the interests of the general public. And then secondary creations such as parody were considered infringing works, and back then it was regarded as an infringement of human rights. It is a violation of freedom of expression and the basic law. Of course, the 2014 bill is an improvement from the previous one. Secondary creations such as parody have been incorporated into the bill as acceptable activities. But with the progress of time, many netizens and their organizations are saying that things outside the exceptions may become criminal, and they are very worried because there may be because the 6 exceptions may not be exhaustive when it comes to ways of expression. So, for fair dealings, they want to add one concept, and this concept of fair use. In Singapore, they merged the 2 concepts so that in the internet, there can be greatest protection to the freedom of expression. Mr. Wu Chi-wai. Am I to continue? Please continue. Thank you, President. As I was saying, we have the concepts of fair dealing and fair use. And netizens want to have exceptions based on fair use or based on fair dealings. And there should also be the concept of fair use so that they can have the opportunity to state the case in front of the court, for the court to make a ruling based on such standards. In addition to fair use, other concepts are also involved. For instance, contract override. That is hoping that these exceptions will not be override by a contractual, by a commercial contract. And they also have to have UGC, the introduction of UGC concept. The administration has all along refused to accept these. And they want the community to accept, to pass the bill first for review later. And I think the administration is tantamount to saying that not all these are totally unacceptable. It's just that it wants us to pass the bill first for review later. I think in the context of the current administration, once a bill is passed, it is unknown when it will be reviewed. And the controversy surrounding another review is not going to be small. Although Mr. So may wants us to pass the bill first, but perhaps he can consider accepting some of the proposals so as to address this problem, to calm down this storm. And perhaps I should use an quote from the article of Mr. Lian Yuzheng, published a few days ago. He said that the legislative intent and tactic of the SL government is to mirror the laws on the mainland as far as possible. Any provisions related to the rights of the public, such as the CE election legislation, they would use the tightest concept. For instance, for the election committee, they use the concept broadly representative, and for provisions involving powers by the authority, they would use the most lenient concepts, such as the use of minimum force by the police. And as a result, most citizens believe that the administration would spare no efforts in giving full play to its powers. And therefore, both the Pan-Democrats and also the netizens will not pin their hopes on the government not using this power, not prosecuting people under the criminal sanctions here. And therefore, they want the provisions to be lenient, so that on the one hand, they can protect copyright owners. On the other hand, the bill will not stifle people's desire to express their opinions or views through secondary creations, so that they won't face criminal or civil sanctions in the future. Nowadays, we do understand that the administration, of course, wants its bills to be passed, because it would mean a major milestone. For instance, it means that by passing the bill, the relevant international treaties are complied with, and through the passage of the bill, the administration can promote the development of the creative industry. But has the administration ever considered this? If the passage of a bill is so controversial, and given the powers enjoyed by the administration, if it doesn't make any adjustment to the bill, leading to divisions and polarization in society, then this is not the most conducive social environment for the growth of creative industries. Therefore, the government should seriously try to think of a better way to resolve the current disputes or conflicts in society. If it is the government's mentality that so long it has got sufficient votes, it will press ahead, then perhaps this is not conducive to the building of a stable and harmonious society. For instance, recently the police asked Google to delete a certain video clip, and Mr. Charles Mok in Hong Kong EJ mentioned the prosecution of a case for access to the computer with dishonest intent. Mr. Mok asked whether an undertaking can be given. In fact, the government did give such an undertaking, but it then went back on its words in a particular case. When the community is so distrustful of the government, how can it, what evidence does it have to, or what can it do to encourage people to trust it? We are worried that people will exhaust its power, will not relent in using its powers. Mr. Wah, I was thinking that what you said just now should be reserved for the second reading debate. Well, I would like to sound all the arguments, because this adjournment, the adjournment will give the administration enough time to resolve the conflicts and divergent views. It will be a good opportunity. Chairman, I understand what you say, but this is also why we have this adjournment debate. The purpose of the adjournment debate is, given the divergent views out there on the copyright 2014 bill, perhaps it is time for the government to withdraw it, because the government would like to address these issues by reviewing it very soon. Perhaps the administration should review the provisions and incorporate them into the bill ASAP. Perhaps another bill should be introduced to Council incorporating all the amendments. Perhaps that would be more conducive to the community. I hope the administration can tackle this problem from this perspective. And if the adjournment debate is passed, I hope the administration can understand what is the root cause of the various controversies in society. With these remarks, I support the adjournment motion. The Council is suspended until 9 a.m. tomorrow.